Hello viewers, welcome back to episode, 923 on owning a 21-year-old Land Rover. Today we're going to start replacing the alternator in here, which is 20 years old, and once or twice it's been flooded with a bit of biodiesel from a leak, so it's done pretty well. So we'll go through this sort of step by step. There's plenty of videos on it, but I thought I'd just do it for a bit of fun, and we can hear some really good swearing. Let's go. The first thing we have to do is replace or remove the temp coupling fan, this thing here. Now there's a special tool you can buy that gets in there and locks onto the pulley bolts and allows you to turn the nut. But a little trick that I got from a fellow Aussie guy, if you remove one of the bolts there, you can get a 36mm spanner, one of these, down in there where that bolt's removed, onto the nut, and you have to shock it. You have to shock it with a steel hammer, not a rubber hammer. You have to shock the spanner. I tried it just doing it with force, and you just end up turning the pulley. But if you shock it with a spanner, a couple of really sharp knocks, and it should unlock, and that'll save you about $80 on the tools to get a thin spanner on here and locking it on to those three nuts here. But fortunately, I was lucky enough to get that on there. You can see where if you remove that nut, you can get a spanner on there, and you shock it with a hammer. You don't have to hit it real hard, but it's just the initial shock. So we got that off. That's the easy part. Right, now one thing I did forget to mention, which is very important, before you start any work, to protect the radiator. So here's some core flute. I did have some cardboard, but I found an old real estate sign, which is perfect. It's a solid core flute over the radiator, because the last thing you want to do is to an alternator, the radiator. That would not be good. So that way you can bang into that with spanners or whatever, or your fist, and you won't damage the radiator. So another tip. So then the next thing is to get a 15mm spanner on the tensioner, the tensioner pulley, and you pull that back like that. I've done it, I've already taken the belt off. Pull that back all the way and slip the belt off one of the smaller smooth sprockets, and that'll get the serpentine belt off. Right, so the next thing, after we take the serpentine belt off, you need to take the tensioner out, which is this thing here. Keeps tension on the belt, and you need a 14mm multi-sided socket or a 12-sided socket to fit that there, and this little baby will do the trick. Make sure that it's stepped down and you got your 14mm there. Now before we remove the alternator, which is down there in behind there, we have to remove the EGR cooler. Now the EGR's disappeared, it fell off somewhere, but this is the exhaust cooler that cools the exhaust that comes from the turbo up there, and the exhaust comes through here and gets cooled by the radiator fluid. So EGRs are just shit. They're literally breathing your own farts. So the exhaust comes out of the turbo, the diesel exhaust comes out of the turbo, through here, gets cooled, goes into the EGR if it was there, and your engine burns it again. What a load of shit, all to lower nitrous oxide slightly. They just ruin engines in diesels. They should never been put in. But anyway, this needs to be removed so we can get space to remove the alternator through here. Oh look, blood, how unusual. Right, so we've removed the EGR cooler, which is here, and we've got that sticking up over there with the hoses still on it. Bottom hose is a bit sus, we may replace that. Coolant hose. So the next thing, take the oil feed off to the alternator. You've done that. Removed this little bracket, which goes up there. And we're getting closer. Well, there we go. I have to get the Torx. I have to undo this clip here. Get out the road. Undo that clip there. That's a bit of a bastard. And there's a Torx 50 underneath that I need to get out there. And then there's a vacuum line there that needs to come off. And I think then we can get ready to pull it out, as the bishop said to the stripper. Right, so the next thing we need to get this clip off. This is the oil feed to the vacuum pump, which is on the front of the alternator. And you should be able to get a little screwdriver in here and flick this out. Fuck! Right, so I managed to get that with the camera out the way, so that's... These clips are painful. Ugh. I've seen a guy try and do this with the belt tensioner still in place, and he took the whole radiator out. It's a nightmare. You have to take the belt tensioner out. Otherwise, you're just creating a nightmare for yourself. And luckily, there we go. Luckily, the EGR is gone because it sits here. And yeah, so this is the vacuum pump, which is on front of the alternator. We've loosened this line here. That has to be taken off. There's a banjo fitting down there, but we'll take that off later once the alternator's out. So I just need to get to the Torx bolt, which is down underneath here, and hopefully this line isn't too bad, otherwise there'll be more swearing. But you can't move that until you get the alternator moving, because there's nowhere for this to go. This line here is only about this long, and there's another clamp right underneath there. Right, another step done. Now, another step to make it easier is to remove the oil feed to the vacuum pump, which is on front of the alternator. That way you don't have it connected when you're trying to pull the alternator out. So I've connected the banjo fitting there. Be very careful you don't lose the copper washers. And then I've loosened it up. That's the feed into the engine there, or from the engine. And I will be taking that out as well. We could just leave that up there like that, maybe. So I've loosened that, remove that. I've seen guys trying to remove the alternator with this connected, and you just run the risk of damaging it, so take it away. So the next thing is to remove the vacuum line. So now I can get to this clip now, because the oil feed was there. So there you go. Right, I had to move the camera to get this off. This was painful. This clip for the vacuum line here. And also, being so old, you can see where it's impressioned into the rubber, and I couldn't slide. Even though I could release this, it wouldn't slide very well. Anyway, we managed to get it off, and there we go. So now we can remove the Torx bolt from down here when I get the Torx bolt tomorrow. And also, anytime you remove any line, tape the end up, because little insects will build in there overnight. And that's an oil feed line, and we don't want that blocked. So, and I don't need to cover that because that's the old alternator, but I will just shove that back on there, so no little insect gets in there overnight. So we're getting closer, trendsetters. Right, I've removed the vacuum line. We just have to get rid of the oil pressure line, but that'll happen when we hopefully pull the radiator off. I've removed the high voltage cable from the alternator. There is another lighter cable, a signal cable from the back, but we'll do that once we slide the alternator forward. So let's give it a go. So it has to come out of the cradle. Oop, hang on, let's get rid of that. Of course, it doesn't want to go. Why the fuck does it want to go? Well, because it's been in there for 20 years, it's made a nice little collar for itself around the bracket. So we'll have to make sure we get rid of that before we... Oh, this is plugged. Yes. Do not fuck the plug, Greg. Right, we've finally clipped the cable off the back of the alternator. Little thing here, I had to push down on there, but of course it was jammed. Giving it a clean. I've given it a clean with inox. So spray it all in there. Inox will clean it, and will also make sure no corrosion starts. Keeps the oxidation away. All right, so next thing to do, get that up there. I'll just clean this bracket down here so the new one can slip in a little bit easier. And we should be good to go. Oh, now I've got to check the neutral. They say check the neutral, which is down here, to make sure it's tight, which it is. Alrighty, here we go. Oh, now I forgot to put the fucking thing on already. Where's that cable? There it is. Clips on there, that cable's on. Can you fucking see that? That's the main, not the main one, but that's the one that you can't get. Now, got to rotate it around. I've also got to line up this oil line here and get it. Oh yeah, baby, it's slipping in. Who's your daddy? So we've got this, make sure you undid this oil feed line, otherwise it gets in the way. I've seen guys try and do this with this hanging down in its normal position. It's just impossible. All right, so we've got that bottom oil line in there on the bottom of the alternator. So as we slip the alternator on, we had to feed it on this line here at the same time. So that's cool. So we've got our vacuum line to go on there, our positive to go on the other end. Got to do that oil line up. And then we've got our oil input line. That banjo fitting goes underneath, down under here. But we can do that. We can do that after. Some people say you put this pipe on the alternator first, but it's a lot of screwing around. I think it's just as easy to do it after, when the alternator's in place. Right. Now before we do the bottom alternator bolt up, we need to get this support bracket up. This is the support bracket that basically the alternator hangs off. It goes from here up to here. So I've got the bottom one on. Now just got to put the top mofo on. Sure we get it in the hole. Right, there we go. Of course the injector wiring harness is right in front. Of course it is. Oh, you might have it, trendsetters. Probably can't see anything. But hey, what do you want? Dinner and a fucking show. Right, so that's supported now. Once we do it up, once we do that up, then we can go underneath and do the Torx underneath there, and then hook up the other vacuum lines, and we're right to put the belt on. Woohoo! Oh, what's really good is having contact dermatitis that's affected by heat and chemicals. It's great. Right, we're going to undo the Torx up here, which is underneath the oil line here, which I have to put this clip back on. If I can't do it, I'll put a screw one on. I'll put that stupid clip back on. So now we've got our T50 Torx fitting that is underneath here. You can't see it, but trust me, it's there. You've got to feel it. Can you feel it going in? Right, torque up the Torx. I literally can't even see it. This is why guys who work on cars are so good in bed, because they don't need to see what they're doing. Ah, we're on, baby. There we go. 45 Newton meters. Lovely. Right, got to torque these up 25 Newton meters for the mounting brackets. Lovely. So I did about 20 something Newton meters. Ooh. Lovely. So that's 25 Newton meters for the mounting support bracket and 45 Newton meters for the Torx. Right. Where are we? We are in. There it is down there. Oh dear, oh dear. Finally, so all hoses connected, intercooler pipe back on, EGR cooler connected. That's our oil feed to the alternator. And today we are also, last minute thing, we're replacing the tensioner, because this tensioner pulley is a little bit noisy, but best to replace it while we've got it out. So we're replacing the tensioner as well, the belt tensioner, a genuine one. I like to go genuine whenever I can. Ooh, very flash. Okay, here's the new tensioner, very nice, new pulley. I was going to buy just the pulley, which you can get aftermarket bearings, but of course, by the time that's worn out, your spring tensioner in here is worn out as well. So they do recommend replacing both. So that's good. Have a genuine one there. I'll go for another 20 years. Ooh, all right, new belt tensioner in. Ooh, scary. Right, there's the alternator buried in there. So we'll put the new belt on and we'll give it a whirl, shell. .21. Nice. Right. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Sorry about the few in and out words, but I did warn you about that. Now, while it wasn't a proper how-to video, there are many other really good videos on YouTube to show you how to do that with all the proper spannering and all that sort of thing, but you get the idea. What I did forget to do, I didn't do what I said you should do. I didn't disconnect the battery from the alternator while I was mucking around with everything, not while I was disconnecting it, and because the alternator had failed seriously inside, it actually flattened the battery completely. I couldn't even get a light on the dash. So when I went to try it, nothing happened. I thought, okay, well that's, normally you absolutely ruin a car battery if you flatten it completely. But anyway, I put it on charge, and it's been on charge for, it almost took 2 days to come back up with my C-Tech charger. It's a very gentle charger and smart charger, so they say. And it's brought it back, and I've been driving it for a couple of weeks now, and the battery seems okay. I'm just giving it another top up because I only drive about 15 minutes to work, and that's not really enough to give a battery a proper charge up after a start. So every few months I do give it a charge anyway, but it seems to be okay, so fingers crossed. So obviously there is a huge failure in that alternator because it was draining on the battery the whole time. And we didn't kill anything, no electronics had died. It did blow all my headlamps, the over voltage from the alternator was putting out the 18 volts. We were a bit concerned about the ECU, but my mechanic told me that the ECU can handle 16 volts, 17 volts intermittently. So we were lucky about that. Blew all my headlights, so I put in LED inserts. They're pretty cool. But anyway, some Osram and Philips LED headlights, very nice. Oh, the inserts, H7 inserts. So the old girl is going again. So that was good. You could do it in a day. You could do the alternator easy in a few hours if you knew what you were doing. Some people say they can do it in an hour. I call bullshit on that. But you could easily do it in a day. It took me nearly a week, but that was, you know, doing it time to time. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. The next thing, my gearbox is now, my shifter is pretty much gone. And once again, it's 20 years old. There's a couple of bushings that go in that and a little metal plate that's probably broken. So I've got the parts on that. I can still drive it, but it's like driving an old Road Ranger, which I used to do many years ago. Those of you who know what a Road Ranger is, Road Ranger gearbox, you really have to pick the gate. There's no spring left to show you where the gate is. So it's taking me back to my old truck driving days. But anyway, got parts coming for that. So if you want to see some more swearing and have a go, watch me doing that, which I've never done before either, let me know and we'll do something a bit different. So anyway, thanks for watching, and some more train stuff on the way. Yeah, and just something a bit different. And of course, those of you who normally watch the Birdwood sub, not much is happening on that. I will do an update on that soon. But of course, we're getting ready to hopefully start moving southward soon. Anyway, more news on that. Thanks for watching. And as Benny Hill used to say, we'll see you very, very soon. Hooroo for now. Bye-bye. Look at this guy.